able to see my slides? Awesome. Okay, so welcome everyone. This is App Critiques and Whiteboarding. I'm really excited for today's presentation because I have experience in doing whiteboard exercises and also learning about app critiques. So I'm really excited to have you all learn today with me as well. So a little bit about myself. My name is Arina. I'm also a banana slug. I graduated from UC Santa Cruz in 2019 with a degree in electrical engineering. So a little bit different than what I'm doing right now, but I'm super grateful for my education at UCSC, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm also a UX UI design bootcamp graduate. I graduated last year in July, and I am currently a junior product designer at a company called Chargeify. It's a startup located in San Antonio, Texas, but we have offices internationally too, which is kind of cool. So that's a little bit about myself, but I also would like to know who's in the audience and get some feedback from you all. So if you can, in the chat, can you please write what year you are? And if you've ever done a whiteboard or app critique exercise before. I'm really curious to see who has experience and who doesn't, and it's totally fine if you do or you don't. Either way. Let me see how I open up the chats here. Yeah, banana slugs. Woo. Awesome, 3rd years, that's super cool. 3rd year cog sci. I've done a whiteboard challenging, but I'm not too confident about it yet. Sophomores, yes, no experience whiteboard challenges. It's totally fine. So I think with today's presentation, even if you have experience, this could be kind of like a checklist. Well, am I also doing these things? Have I thought about these things? But if you've never actually done these exercises before, this is a really great introduction to how you should start thinking about your interview process and whiteboard exercises. Awesome, thanks so much for commenting in the section there. I'm gonna have to read through a little bit more later so we can move on with the presentation. Okay, so today's goals, we're gonna tackle whiteboard exercises, or at least the framework of what I studied when I was going through the job interview process. We're gonna try to understand app critiques and what they entail. And I'm also going to encourage you all to network. I'm a huge advocate for networking, and networking has given me the opportunities that I have today. And as you can tell, transitioning from one major to another career, it could be really challenging, but with my networking experience and all of that, I was able to be given opportunities to meet new people and then work. So I'll go over that process and kind of break down how to network as well and give you tips and tricks to do so. And then later on, Q&A section, you can ask me anything. It could be whiteboarding, app critiques, about my experience through bootcamp, whatever it is. But yeah, let's move on. Okay, so whiteboard exercises, let's start with that first. So what are whiteboard exercises? And to put in short, it's a hypothetical or real world design problem that designers need that designers perform when they tackle during a job interview in a short period of time. So from my experience, I have done one whiteboarding exercise, and that is what I've, at the company that I currently work at today. And so they usually range from 30 minutes to an hour. So it depends on your hiring manager, it depends on the questions they give you, it depends on their schedule, but I would say it's about 30 minutes to an hour. And just to give you a little bit of context, when I was doing my whiteboard exercise, so during my rounds of interviews with the company, during my first round of interviews, I met with the design manager and did kind of like a screening to see if I would make a good team member on their team. The second round of interviews, I interviewed with PMs, product managers, engineers, and the rest of the design team. And then my third round of interviews, I had to do slides about two of my like projects in my portfolio. And then I also had to do a whiteboard exercise within that time frame. And my whiteboard exercise lasted 45 minutes. So right between, 30 and an hour. That's a little bit of background on my experience. So whenever you present something, whenever you are interviewing, whenever you are really doing anything, you always want to think about your audience. And that's how I approach kind of every problem or everything that I do in life. Just like even as a designer, and I'm sure many of you are probably thinking the same, it's like when you want to present something, you should know your audience. So my first question would be, what do hiring managers want to see during a whiteboard exercise? And the first thing that you should keep in mind is that when you think of a whiteboard exercise, don't be frightened and be scared to not have like the right answer, the right solution, because there is no right solution at the end of the day for a whiteboard exercise. It's all about demonstrating how you think. And that's what the hiring managers want to see. They want to see how you think. They want to see your design thinking skills, your problem solving skills. They want to see communication skills and your collaborative efforts. And so point number 3 here that I have, which is balance of questions and assumptions. This one is a really tricky thing to get right. And from my bootcamp experience, I had a mentor during that time, and he said that this is one of the harder things to get right, which is finding a good mix between asking the hiring manager questions during your whiteboard exercise, but also making assumptions that tell your hiring manager that you're knowledgeable in this section, or you can assume this because of that. So there's a lot of critical thinking involved when you do these whiteboard exercises. And again, there's never one right solution. It's all about demonstrating how you're thinking and your problem solving skills during your 45 to an hour time with the team. So your next question might be, okay, well, what questions should I practice? Well, for my experience, there's lots of resources online. And just to let you know, for anyone, if anyone's taking notes, these slides will be available to you with all the links shortly after this presentation. So don't worry about taking notes right now. It'd be a really good idea, I think, to take notes for like questions you might have for me later on. But yeah, all of this will be available to you later on, just to let you know. But these are some helpful resources that I found. They kind of just, the first one generates questions for you. And then the 100 Days of Product Design, the UX Challenge, they have some really good exercises there. And another one is just ask another product designer, reach out to people on LinkedIn and connect with product designers who are currently in the industry and be like, hey, so what did you get asked during your interview? Like, what questions do you have in mind? And which ones do you recommend practicing? And so you might be asking me that now in this presentation, where here are examples of some that I practiced during my interview process here. And so it's also important to know that during these whiteboard exercises, there's all different types. So don't be afraid to practice questions that you might not feel comfortable doing. So for example, number 5 on the list here, voting blockchain. When I practiced these questions, I had no idea what voting blockchain meant and what that entailed. So I got really nervous. But this is a really good question to practice, because then it makes you think, okay, what are the questions that I need to ask to make sure that I clarify what this whiteboarding exercise is going to be. And so I just want to take it home here. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter which questions you also practice, because what's actually important is having a framework and structure so that you can address any problem that's going to be asked of you in your interviews. So your next question might be, how do I do a whiteboard exercise? Well, first of all, let's find a structure that works best for you. I'm also going to include lots of resources to whiteboard exercises via all types of mediums later on in this presentation. So find a structure that works best for you, and you can find a lot of people's structures and how they do it in those videos, for example. You also really want to time yourself, Because at the end of the day, when you have a interview, you have to be considerate of people's times. Not only are they going through a really long process of interviewing, but they also have work. So they can't just like pause their work. So you really have to consider people's time. So the more that you practice staying within the bounds of 30 minutes to an hour, maybe one exercise could be 30 minutes, another one could be 45, and then another one could be an hour. Really practice those times and adjust your framework to the time that your hiring manager is going to give you. And also, before you even go into a whiteboard exercise, make sure to ask, how much time will I have for my whiteboarding exercise? That will give you lots of, you'll be like clear with like your expectations. And ask someone to act as a product manager. So what I did when I was practicing these whiteboard exercises was, my boyfriend, he is a developer, and he's currently working in the industry, and he works with product managers, but also he like studied up online just to see like, okay, what does a product manager care about, or what would a hiring manager do during these whiteboard exercises? And there's lots of resources online that you can find to see what kind of questions or input they would give for these whiteboard exercises. So I had him help me with all of my whiteboard exercises, and it was really great to have that practice, because it's very beneficial for when you actually go into the interview and you actually have to communicate with someone else on the opposite end of the camera. And finally, practice. Like, you have to practice this. Practice makes perfect, and it might not be perfect, but it's gonna be better than the time you did before. So practice, find your buddy who you're gonna practice with, and hold yourself accountable to like maybe some goals that you set yourself for your whiteboard exercises. Okay, so let's actually go through the framework of what I did when I was practicing. So again, framework is extremely important. If you have your framework down, you will be able to answer any whiteboard question that might be thrown at you. So you also have to make sure that you find one that works for you. And so here is an example of what how I managed my time and my questions. So first, I broke it up into context. I needed to figure out, okay, what was the problem? Like, why am I solving this problem? And then who am I solving this problem for? Your users. You also need to understand your users' needs and their pain points. So at the end of the day, you're designing this product for somebody because they are struggling to do something. And you cannot start your design until you know for a fact that like what you're solving for. It's also really good to know your product's needs. So what am I building? Is this, for example, is this going to be a physical product, or is this going to be a digital one? So am I like creating a mobile interface, or am I creating a bank, for example, that needs to be designed? And so you also want to understand your constraints and your limitations. You want to also make some assumptions. And then this is where like that level of experience comes in, those are creating your own assumptions. But whenever you make your own assumptions, I always recommend for you to say, hey, like, I assume that XYZ, would you say this is a reasonable assumption? So like communicate with the person that you're interviewing with and have that back and forth conversation, because that's what they want to have on their team during their work. So if you demonstrate that you can have that back and forth conversation and just get like their input once in a while, they'll really appreciate that. And also understand the current user journey. So for this one, what I like to do is to just create bullet points and make a list of like, okay, for example, let's say we're designing, the challenge is to design a smart fridge. And if we were to talk about like the problem, okay, well, food is expiring and this person keeps throwing out their food because it expires and they don't know. And so you have to think about your user. Okay, well, who is the user? Is it college students with like a mini fridge in their dorm? Or is it going to be a family of 5 who has a huge fridge with two drawers here? Or is it, a fridge toy that a child uses. So you have to know your user, your user needs and your pain points, the product needs, your constraints and limitations. And yeah, so for the current user journey, just going back to that point, for the smart fridge, for example, I would start listing out the journey. So let's say this is a family of 5. The mom goes grocery shopping with the dad. They bring home the food and they have to put it in the fridge. And they go, my assumption is that they go grocery shopping maybe once every 2 weeks. But let's say a month goes by, and when they reach to the back of the fridge, they find rotten vegetables and they have to throw it away, and that's money lost. So then they have to throw the food away and they have to go back to the store and buy groceries, and they feel that they're wasting their money. During the current user journey, during swiper exercise, I would bold and turn the pain point that the user is experiencing in red and really highlight that, and then continue to say, like, this is what I'm targeting and this is what I want to tackle. And this is what I'm solving for. This is like, you really want to point out the problem so that you understand it and then move on. So then you move on to your problem space. For the rest of this, I'm just gonna breeze over it a little bit because of time here. But for the problem space, you then want to create a list of ideas and opportunities. Okay, so create like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ideas, for example. One could be, okay, I'm going to create a smart fridge that has a tablet that you can detach from the fridge. You take a picture of the receipt, and then the receipt is then generated into the program, and now your fridge knows exactly what food you put in it at the exact time that you did. Or the fridge has some kind of technology in it where it knows exactly where and what food is in the fridge based on the location that you put your food items. And yeah, so you just list all of your examples, and then you want to prioritize and show the hiring manager that you understand effort versus impact matrix. And this matrix is super, super important and is always used in designing any type of product. Basically, you need to understand how much effort is going to be put into an idea. Is it going to be a quick and easy solution for like for the designers to design the mockups and then for the engineers to develop it? Or is it going to take super long and it's going to take a whole quarter, and we should heavily focus our time on that? Then you also want to think about the impact. How impactful is this for the user? Is it extremely beneficial, or is it like an okay feature? And so you always want maximum impact and lowest amount of effort. That's the sweet point. And so when you put your ideas on the little matrix, the effort versus impact matrix, pick the one that falls closer to least amount of effort and the most impact for the user. And then you get into your solution space. So now you remember that you already created like your current user journey with that bolded pain point for your user. Now you want to create a new user journey, and you say, okay, I'm going to tackle this idea, and this is what's going to change now. And here is where like the pain point disappears and it's being fixed. And then you create your wireframes. So you finally get to that. As you can see, there's a lot of thinking and a lot of questions being asked before you even get to creating your mockups, whether that's designing a fridge, designing a mobile UI, or just anything really. And then after you create your wireframes, you want to wrap it all up. So you always want to mention, like, okay, if I had more time, if I had more resources, this is what I would do differently. And that shows to the hiring manager that you can think outside the box and you can continue to improve, and that's always great to have. You also want to measure your success with your new design. So how are you going to do that? And here are some examples of things that you can measure with your products. And then finally, you want to summarize everything. You want to say, okay, let me quickly, in like 3 to 4 sentences, briefly go through, okay, this is my user, this is the problem, these are the constraints, I made this assumption, this is the idea that I have to tackle this pain point, this is my new user journey, check out my wireframes, and if I were to do anything differently, this is what I would do. And that's it. It's not, that's it, but that's the idea there. And here's an example of how I broke up my time. And this is what you should really focus your time on practicing. Really make sure that you stay within your 10 minutes and you stay within your 5 minutes. Because once you start going over your time, you are now losing your structure and it kind of gets, out of control of it. So pick the time that works best for you and stick to that. And I also advise for you, before starting any whiteboard exercise, clarify at the beginning of the challenge whether you should focus more on the user flow and the journeys and the pain points, or whether they want to see beautiful wireframes and like crisp, clear wireframes and that thought out. I think it's really important to understand what's expected of you before you go in. So maybe if they say they want to spend more time on wireframes, put a little bit more time there. But if they want to see more user flows and your ideas and opportunities, go the other way around. So I encourage you to practice each way and spend time maybe doing less on context and then more on problem space, and see what works best for you, because this is the framework that worked best for me, but everyone's a little bit different and everyone's a little bit stronger and weaker in different areas. So make it work for you. And where can you learn more? This was a really fast spiel on my thought process, but I highly encourage you to check out these resources. These are the ones that helped me really learn about whiteboard exercises and perfect them in a way. Not perfect them, but I get really excited to do whiteboard exercises now because I'm not intimidated by finding the right solution. I know the process, I know my framework. I'll go into that meeting and try to do my very best. So yes, now moving on to app critiques. And to be fully transparent with you, I've never been asked to do an app critique during my job interview process, but I have learned about them. And so hopefully I can give you some more insights on what they are. So what are app critiques? It's an exercise for designers to demonstrate their product thinking and visual design skills through critiquing an application. This could be mobile, or this could be desktop designs for an application, yeah. So again, what do hiring managers want to see? How do we execute? What do we do? And what do we want to spend our time on demonstrating to the hiring managers? They want to see your critical thinking skills, your user experience skills, your visual design skills, your interaction skills, and your communication skills. So almost the same things that you've done in your whiteboard exercises. So if you practice one, you will improve in the other as well. So definitely balance your time in learning both and practicing both. So, okay, what questions should I practice then? You can think of any app. It could be Google Maps, Spotify, Amazon. Literally pick up your phone and click on an app that you really love and scroll through it and think about, okay, like, why do I love this app? And in the next slide, we'll go through how to critique an app, but you can literally practice on anything you use. I always like to practice on a really wonderful app that I admire. So Hopper is one of my favorite apps. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it. It's kind of cool. And then look at a not so great app, and maybe you can find some of those opinions online and check those out. Or maybe you have some of your own of apps you don't like, but you can then start to break it down as to maybe why you don't like it in the next slide here. So how do I critique an app? So that you break it down into two sections. You want to audit it in a user experience and a user interface fashion. And then you want to pick an approach to critique it. So again, framework is so, so, so important. And if you get your framework down, you can answer any question that's given at you or thrown at you. So again, there's a resource at the bottom of this slide. It's a Medium article, and this is where I got most of this information from. And it's extremely helpful. In the article, they include YouTube links and examples that I haven't included here, but 10 out of 10 recommend. Please check it out if you have time. So again, first you audit, as I mentioned earlier. So first you want to think about user, who's the user and what's the problem? And you always want to start with that, because this app is trying to solve a problem for them. And so you want to figure out who they are and what that problem is. Excuse me. Next, you want to go into structure. So take a few minutes to explore the app to better understand the features, the flows, and the navigation structure within the app. Next, you want to think about the interaction design. So over time, there are repeatable patterns that users get familiar with, and ask yourself if you can see those in the app when you're scrolling through. So you have the scrolling, loading, progress, and transitions, for example. And then finally, you want to look at the UI design. And can you find design consistency? Do you think the colors evoke specific emotions? And again, if you look at the Medium article, there's lots of questions listed there that you should consider when you are auditing an app. So finally, okay, you did all this research on the app during your interview. And again, talk out loud. Let the hiring manager know what you're thinking, because they don't know what you're thinking. So you have to really take initiative in speaking out loud and getting comfortable doing that. So after you've done that, you now want to pick an approach. So you always want to answer what the app is, or talk about what the app is first, what the app is solving, and how it's solving this problem. So give like a really brief overview when you're first starting out. And then you want to pick an approach that works for you. And there, again, the article goes into further detail of what these approaches are. So first you can do like app driven, so you can critique the app very broadly and kind of just like walk through each screen and kind of talk about it. This one is very broad and there's no real flow to it, but there's pros and cons to each type of approach. The second one is personas or feature driven. So you basically discuss features, problems, or flows from a specific persona's point of view. And then problem driven is the third one. So if you're limited on time and that the hiring manager really wants you to just tackle a specific problem, they're like, okay, look at this problem and tell me about it. Then you probably want to use the problem driven approach, where you think about the specific problem and any use case that the interviewer wants to chat about. And that's the basic framework. So, get your framework down, practice, and you will be able to really tackle any question. So where can I learn more? Helpful videos and then helpful Medium articles are here. But you can always just do a quick Google search and you'll find lots of resources. Okay, so that wraps up whiteboarding and app critiques. And I'm going to now chat about networking advice. And I want to really encourage this because of what I've experienced in my own life. So why should I network? You want to practice speaking about yourself. You want to learn from others, get feedback on your portfolio, on your work, and create opportunities for the future. So I think a really good explanation of, just to wrap this all up here, is a quick tip that I found from Jenna, who I follow on LinkedIn. She's an incredible career strategist, and I highly encourage you to follow others like this on LinkedIn. She said that the most qualified people don't always get the job. The people who understand how to sell themselves do. I see it happen all the time. A prospective client will come to me to redo their resume. They think that is the issue. But when I ask them, why should someone hire you? They look at me like a deer in headlights. If you don't know how to articulate your story, you're going to have a major problem in the job search. Knowing how to tell your story is more valuable than any credential you will have on your resume. And I think that is a really good representation of my experience, because I graduated with a completely different degree. And although I went to a boot camp, this was like my first real job in the industry that I received. But the reason why I think that I was successful in getting it was because I practiced networking from the very beginning. So for example, I had a call with someone, and she is a product designer in the industry and has been for many years. And I told her about my experience, and I told her how I was nervous, and I asked her for some advice. And after talking to her, we had a really great conversation. And because of that, she later reached out to me as soon as I graduated my boot camp, and she connected me with someone who gave me a freelance gig. So that experience allowed me, that networking connection, just one call that I had with them, they helped me get this opportunity that I was then able to put on my resume, which obviously helped during the job search. And I also networked with a ton of other people, but not just for the benefits of creating opportunity, but also about learning about the industry. And so when I network with people, I also was able to ask like really, really great questions that helped me better understand, is this the right path for me? What do I need to improve on? And what is the industry currently like? And in addition to that, every time you meet someone, you have to give a little bit of like an elevator pitch about yourself. So I got really comfortable talking about myself, talking about my experience. I could say it in like 2 sentences and be just super smooth with it because I kept on practicing and meeting new people, and I was able to basically have that like interview prep every single time I networked with someone. And another really good reason of like why networking helped me was because now I'm a full-time like remote employee. So I work from my room and the rest of my teammates are in their rooms. So I don't get to see people face to face. And I think maybe nowadays that could become more of the norm. So when you're, you're joining your team, you'll have those one-on-ones, but over time, it can start to feel maybe a little bit lonely or kind of like you just need to talk to someone. But because of all the networking experience I had, I'm like not shy to reach out to other teammates and ask them about, hey, can we schedule a quick lunch call? Hey, can I ask you some more questions? I've scheduled so many calls with teammates just to ask about their background, just to ask about like what they like doing after work and what they enjoy about their work. And so because of my networking experience, I now am able to create really awesome relationships with my teammates, even if we're in separate states. So again, like there's just winning. There's no losing in networking, in my opinion. And so now some of you might be thinking, no, I'm shy. I can't do that. I'm scared. I don't know who to reach out to. I don't know what to say. I can't do it. But today I want to give you just a breakdown of all the steps that you can take to be successful networking, and then you won't have any excuse not to. Awesome. So how do I network? These are the places that I networked in: LinkedIn, Slack channels, and ADP list. So in LinkedIn, I reached out to other banana slugs who have graduated and became product designers, product managers. And I'm able to, because of those connections now, I still keep in touch with them, and we always share really helpful like resources with each other and just build a stronger community, just design community in general. On Slack, here are my favorite Slack channels. I try to engage with folks and attend events as much as possible. Yeah, these are my favorite ones. And then I don't know if anyone has heard of ADP List, but it's basically a website full of mentors. They're just full of people who want to help each and every one of you. And all you need to do is pick someone who you might be interested in chatting with and schedule a time to chat with them, share your information, talk about yourself, get advice from them. Those mentors are there for you and there to support you. So really make use of all of these resources when you can. And super, super important, whenever you connect with anyone, especially on LinkedIn, always include a note. Always tell the person why you're connecting. It could be brief, it could be anything, but always include a note because you're more likely to have a stronger connection with someone if you start the conversation when you want to add them. So who do I reach out to? That could be your next question. And for me, I reached out to people who I was interested in learning from. I reached out to a ton of folks who transitioned from non-traditional backgrounds into product design. And I wanted to learn about like, hey, how did you become a product designer? You were in the military. How the heck did you make that happen? Or like, oh, you're an engineering major too? Me too. Like, we have so much in common. Like, I want to learn about how, like, what did you do to become a successful product designer? I also reached out to people that I admired and looked up to. I found some folks like through Dribble, some people, you know, on Twitter and whatnot, just people you admire. It's always nice to have someone to look up to and message them to get their advice or anything. And I also reached out to people when I needed feedback on my portfolio. So again, when you are applying to work as a product designer, you need a portfolio to showcase your work. And again, there's many different ways you can create a portfolio. And I was able to get a lot of feedback on mine, and I continued to make it better and better and better to the point where I was pretty happy with it. But I still don't think, I still think it could be better. I feel like with portfolios, I could always improve. Okay, so your next question is, okay, I know who I want to reach out to, but what do I say? Like, what do I say in my message? Well, here's some examples. I found your info while I was looking for people who made the jump into product design from non-traditional backgrounds. Your experience in transitioning from EE to product designer really stood out to me, as I've also wanted to do the same. Would love to chat about your journey and get some advice from you. You know, like something like this would make someone really happy because they want to hear from you and they'll get really excited. This is also Austin's approach. There's a link here where you can learn more about this type of approach, and like Austin, he's also a career coach, about like, yeah, his approach to networking. But yeah, it can really be something as short as, hey, I really liked your portfolio. I'd love to learn a little bit more about you. Can we chat? Do you have some time to chat next week or something like that? You can really keep it simple. Okay, so you scheduled, you chose your person, you reached out to them, they said, heck yeah, we wanna chat, and so let's schedule a Zoom call. Okay, so you might get nervous, like, what do I do? All the really good feedback on. I mean, it's a long list here, but one of my favorite questions that I like to ask was, what does the collaboration look like between the product designers, the product managers, and the engineers in your company? The reason why I liked asking this is because I didn't work yet. Like, I haven't been a product designer in a in-house role yet. So I didn't know what that collaboration looked like. But because I asked this question, I received a lot of feedback from other designers. And then I was able to use that during my interview process and say things like, I haven't worked in an in-house role yet, but after speaking with a ton of designers, my understanding of the collaboration that goes on between, you know, PMs, product designers, and engineers is yada, yada, yada. And so this shows that you're putting effort into learning, even when you're not in the role. But yeah, here's a list of all the things you can ask, and usually the feedback is really, really great. Okay, so Zoom call's over. Phew, you know, it's over. So you have to reflect. You have to reflect on how it went, because you always want to improve and you always want to do better next time, right? So think about, how did it go? What can I do now to return the favor? So this person gave me their time. Is there anything that I can do to thank them, or, you know, do something? What did I learn, and how can I use this information to improve my skills? What can I do better next time? And how do I keep this connection going? So these are really important things to consider after every single Zoom call, because this is how you will improve. I've had so many calls where I ended the call and I was like, oh man, like I made such a big fool of myself. They'll probably never want to talk to me again. But at the end of the day, it was an experience, and I jotted down my reflections and I moved on, because tomorrow's a new day and you talk to a new person, you make new connections, and you continue to grow. With this, I created an Excel sheet, and I had columns of like the people I reached out to, how I reached out to them, what we talked about, and then like my next steps and like my reflections. So I kept everything organized in an Excel sheet. And so I advise you all to do the same, to stay organized, to know who you reached out to, and continue to build on those relationships. Just because you reached out, just don't forget about them. You know, reach back out in a little bit, tell them about your new internship, tell them about your new portfolio, get feedback from them, really use your resources, and do whatever you can to give back to your community as well in any way you can. So let's review. So what did we talk about today? Don't forget to practice your whiteboard exercises and your app critiques with a friend. Hold yourselves accountable to it. Seriously, like create a Slack channel, create a time to meet every single Thursday to do whiteboard exercises and app critiques. And by practicing, you're only going to get better. I also challenge you to network with at least one new person a week and learn something new from them. I'm telling you, the sooner you start, the more you'll be involved in the industry, in the design community, and the more opportunity will come your way, whether that's internships, whether that's you need a portfolio review and you really admire someone else's portfolio, so their feedback is really valuable to you. Just continue to reach out and make connections. It's only going to help you in life, and it's only going to give you that practice when you are ready to maybe work remotely at your new internship or job. And finally, find a community that will help support you through your journey. And if you can't find it, make it yourself. Seriously, like you are yourself's biggest advocate. And if you don't do it for you, and if you don't stand up for yourself, and if you don't take these actions to help yourself in your career, no one will. Yeah. It's like the thing that I live by. You're yourself's biggest advocate, and the more that you do for yourself and the more that you put yourself in maybe uncomfortable situations, you will grow and you will see results. And that is the conclusion of my presentation here. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully this gave you a rundown of whiteboards, app critiques, and what networking should be like. Please feel free to reach out to me on my LinkedIn. Please view my portfolio if you'd like, or email me. Like I want to meet everyone today, and I want to learn about all of your journeys. I want to know like where you're at in your design career, because I remember just like having a community through my boot camp helped me so much, because now I've made really, really great friends who I talk to very often, and I feel supported. I know that like others are going through the same things that I am, especially during that bootcamp experience. And now being a junior product designer, there's still so much I don't know, and there's so much times when I feel lost. But when you have a community, you don't feel so alone. And so, yeah, please reach out to me if you want to learn more about like switching careers, my bootcamp experience, the interview process, and how to not feel so overwhelmed, how to network and all that. And if you want to learn more about like what it's like being a junior designer at a startup. So yeah, thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for me? You can ask me anything. Big or small. I feel like I lost my voice a little. Oh my gosh.
Question. I was wondering what you would ask someone to ease their nerves before an interview.
So what you would ask someone to ease their nerves, like what you would say, or sorry, can you rephrase that question a little bit? I was wondering you would tell someone who is nervous for an interview. Okay, awesome. Oh yeah, no problem. I totally get it. My internet is spotty all the time. So I think preparation is always extremely important, and preparing for anything that I've done has always given me a little bit more confidence in presenting something, doing a whiteboard exercise, etc. So even before your interview, make sure to practice, and do as much as you can. But right before the interview, I think it's important to just believe in yourself, believe that your practice was valuable to your time and that you can do it. Interviews can be stressful. I'm not going to lie. Interviews are, they give you gray hairs sometimes because of all the nerves. And I can't tell you how many times I practice like working on slides or working on whiteboard exercises or just practicing my like interview questions, you know, the screening ones that they ask you at the beginning. It could be very, very nerve-wracking, but as long as you practice and just continue to believe in yourself that you can do it, that there's no other option, you have to do this. There's just no quitting, there's no giving up. Your only option is to succeed, and you continue to be optimistic and believe in yourself. I think that's the best thing to do. And always be optimistic, no matter what. Sorry if that was super cheesy, but that's how I do things. Even if I had one call and they never called back and they ghosted me, I move on because the company that I interviewed for doesn't define my success. What does is the work that I present and do and show every single day. So hopefully that gives you some inspiration. Yeah, interviews can be so discouraging, but it's all about learning process. Exactly. And from my own experience, just share, I interviewed with multiple companies, and some companies had red flags. Always look out for that. One question that I usually, well, I guess it's a debate online. It's like, should designers work for free? And it's heavily debatable. But I would say that know your worth, know your skill, and understand you really have to like be true to yourself and say, okay, maybe I'm really good at doing research, but my UI sucks. And that's what I need to improve on. So can I work for free for a little bit to improve my UI skills? Is that something that I want to dedicate my time to? Is it worth it? Or you can think about just like, no, like I know that I can do it and I know that I can get an internship. I know I can get a full-time role. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep interviewing because every single interview is just practice. And again, practice, practice, practice. It's going to give you that experience that you need for that, you know, that job that you're going to get at the end and you're going to learn so much from. Yeah, definitely. So self-worth, confidence, growth, and love. I think a lot of that comes from reflection. So after you do and like anything really, just reflect on it. Like be real. Like, did something that you just do, what did it go really well, or did you completely fail at it? And understand and realize and take notes. Like, what can I do differently next time, and how do I improve? Improve for next time. Yeah.
Okay, and just a time head up, we have 5 or 6 minutes left for questions. So if you have any, yeah, feel free again to unmute yourself or drop them in the chat. Otherwise, we will be ending this at 8 o'clock. And again, this was such a great presentation. I can't thank you enough. You gave so many good pointers about like literally the entire interview process. So can't thank you enough about all the work you've done for us.
Yeah, no problem. I'm super happy to be here. And hopefully you learned something, and then hopefully you have more questions to ask, you know, maybe review this and jot down your questions. Feel free to ask me, send it my way. Or go on ADP list and communicate with someone else there, communicate with people on LinkedIn. I highly encourage you to network as well. Yeah, that was a very detailed health conversation. Definitely gave me more confidence to reach out and network. Awesome. Yes, I'm telling you, everyone, you have all the tools you need right here. Let me just go back. You have examples of, okay, what do I say when I reach out to someone? What do I ask? This was the hardest thing for me to work on. Like, okay, so I'm in the Zoom call and I don't want it to be awkward. I don't know this person at all. I don't know if they're very chatty or if they're not. So how do I make it not awkward? And this is something that you just work on by continuing to network. These are the questions that have really worked out for me. And you can definitely tweak them to your advantage, but also do a lot of active listening during your chats with people, because there might be questions that pop up in your head then and there. So yeah, this is it's good to prepare a list of things you want to ask someone before you chat with them, and maybe give them a heads up when you reach out to them, like, hey, I have a question about your career transition. I know I use that example a lot because it's very relatable. But another good question I like to ask is, like, what's the biggest challenge your team is facing right now? I really like to hear about, I guess, like struggles, just to learn more about what is their plan to overcome their struggles, and what can I learn from their struggles and make sure to not make those myself, you know? And so that's always helpful to learn from others and then use that to your advantage in your own workspace. Yeah. Here are a couple of other slides that we have. So check out the YouTube channel, portfolio building workshop, and all of the links here.
Yeah, and also just for everyone who's here, this workshop will be recorded. It'll be posted to our YouTube channel and our website, so you guys can give it a look. And also the resources and the links that were on this slide will also be made available to you, most likely through a PDF or a template that will be sent out. So you can feel free to direct message Zeal, actually, if you would like that, and you can direct message her or myself your emails.
And huge shout out to Zeal and Julia for reaching out to me and making me feel so welcomed. You have a wonderful community, and these ladies are doing a really good job of taking care of those who want to help and give presentations. So I'm very thankful for those two and for everyone who attended today. So yes, please reach out and let's connect.
Okay, yeah, so if that's if there's no other questions, I think that we can wrap this workshop up. Again, Arina, thank you so much. There was so much great information you had on everything, and it sounded like you probably touched a couple of people and helped them out, which is, I think, is very rewarding in itself. So thank you again so much. We really couldn't have done this without you.
Oh, thank you all, and I wish you the best in your, whether you're still, in the process of deciding whether UX UI design is interesting to you, or whether you're creating your portfolio already, or you're having those interviews, you're trying to work through whiteboard exercises. Yeah, I wish you all the best. It could be really hard, and it's a very time consuming, especially when you're still in college. But you are all very strong and you can do it. And just time management is extremely important, and make sure that you're dedicating the right time to the right places, or else you're wasting your time, right? But yeah, good luck to everyone. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Bye guys, thank you so much for coming out to our workshop as well. Yeah, again, connect with us through our social medias, and also you can reach out to Arina as well, and she included her information too.
Awesome, take care.